Welcome to this edition of Access Together. These shows are made possible through the combined efforts of Shelby County Schools and GHS-TV. The shows are hosted by the members of the community and utilize the staff and facilities of Germantown High School. If you would like to watch our live stream or get more information about these shows, log on to our website, GHS-TV.org. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy the following presentation.
Welcome to Inspiring Leaders. I'm Donna Chandler Newman, your host for our show, and thank you for watching our program. Through this show, we meet community leaders and we examine how they're using their unique talents and skill sets to make a difference. And through our discussions, we hope to inspire others to discover and to share their own leadership abilities for the overall betterment of our community. Now, it's no surprise to anyone in the Memphis metropolitan area that we have a serious problem with crime, and juvenile crime in particular. Today on our show, we're talking with community leaders who are working with our lost and forgotten youth, our area's high-risk juvenile offenders referred from our juvenile court system. The organization is named JIFF, that's Juvenile Intervention and Faith-Based Follow-Up, and their goal, to break the destructive cycle of juvenile crime through faith-based intervention. And yes, they're working to transform lives by planting seeds of hope in these youth's lives. And yes, it's actually working. In this first segment of our show, we'll meet Richard Graham, Executive Director of JIFF, and we'll learn more about the organization itself and how they go about accomplishing their mission. And in our second segment, Richard and I will be joined by Lauren Wilson-Young, a member of the JIFF Board of Directors and the owner of Sweet Lala's Bakery, a cookie business with a really special connection to JIFF. Now, joining us now is Richard Graham, Executive Director of JIFF, Juvenile Intervention and Faith-Based Follow-Up. Welcome, Richard.
Thanks, Donna. It's great to be here.
I'm so glad to have you here today. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your background. You weren't always in nonprofit work, and tell me about how you got involved with JIFF.
Most of my professional career has been with major companies in sales and marketing. I became aware of JIFF about 9 years ago, started hanging around JIFF and liked the work they were doing. And within 6 months, I was asked to join the board. And so I was on the board of JIFF for 6 years. And then in March of 2014, had the opportunity to take over as executive director when the founding director decided to move on to another chapter in his life. And so for almost the past 3 years, I've been the executive director and loving the work there and what we're trying to accomplish.
You know, that's really quite the calling that you have to even come to that organization. Tell me a little bit about the history and about the mission of JIFF.
JIFF was formed in 2003. The founding director noticed that kids were repeatedly reappearing at juvenile court, that he was doing some work at there. And so he basically prayed about, somebody needed to do something about this, and sure enough, he started doing something about it. To engage these youth to see what the problems were in the community that were bringing them back into the system repeatedly. And so, again, as you stated earlier, the mission is to break the destructive cycle of juvenile crime and to create a bigger vision for these youth to take them away from the life that they're leading right now.
Well, now tell me about the process of how one of these youths gets involved with JIFF. How does that work?
The kids that we work with are all assigned to us by juvenile court. All of our referrals come from juvenile court. And the kids that we work with in our core 16-week program have actually been through the court 3 times or more, meaning they've been arrested 3 times or more. We've had some youth that have been arrested 15 times or more. So we're actually their last stop, their last chance. If they don't get it through the JIFF programming, then more than likely they're going to end up in the adult system in a matter of time.
Now, how many youths do you have currently right now? How many are you working with now?
Currently right now we have 33 kids in the program, but the youth are assigned to us at all different times. So the programming is a rotational 16 weeks.
I see.
So next week we could be assigned 3 more kids, and also next week 3 kids could graduate out of the program. But during the 16 weeks they will get the full benefit of the 16 core weeks of programming.
So in a year you will go through how many kids you think?
In a year, we'll go through, our target this year is to work with 115 kids in the 16-week program. but we'll work with another 250 youth with other programs. So our goal this year is to work with right at 365 kids total, all high-risk kids.
Okay. Now, if I remember correctly, you told me that there are 4 different mentoring sorts of programs. 3 of them are with your staff and 1 with community. Tell me about the 3 with your staff. You referenced 1 a minute ago. Tell me about how different they are.
Okay, the first program is was a pilot project with us last year through Juvenile Court. It's called an Evening Reporting Center, and that's where kids are assigned to us that are awaiting a court date with the judge in 20 to 30 days. And they're with us in that program for 30 days, 20 to 30 days, and they receive some of the same programming that our core program offers, but it's in order so that when they go before the judge in 20 days, that they have a good report.
And that's an early intervention sort of program, right?
Early intervention program, typically nonviolent offenses. And then from there, we go into what used to be called the MARS program, which was Mediation, Restitution, and Reconciliation Services. And they work with typically first-time offenders. MARS merged in with JIFF back on October the 3rd, and so we renamed the program at that point, calling it Early Intervention Program. And those kids receive 16 hours of programming over 4 different classes. And the program has been around since the late 90s and has a phenomenal 90% success rate.
Wow.
That the kids that go through that program do not re-enter the court system.
And how do you measure success?
Well, in that program, and as well as in our 16-week program, we measure it based on do they reappear in the court system.
Okay.
In our 16-week program, where we're working with more, I guess you would call them hardcore offenses, we track them for 2 years. If they don't re-enter the court system for an offense equal to or greater than the offense that brought them to JIFF in the first place, then that's counted as a success.
Well, sounds like a success to me.
And we even track that through the adult when they graduate on out to 18 and above. Again, we can track them through the justice system to see have they reappeared or not.
Okay, so put a face on this for me. Tell me about one of your success stories.
I
know you have 100.
I have 2 great ones, but I'll narrow it to 1. Last January, I was on Live at 9 on Channel 3 for a 4-minute interview. 15 minutes later, I walk into the office, and there's a message from a Mrs. Harris. I called her, and she said, I had to call and tell you that JIFF saved my son Akeem's life. He'd gone through the program 10 years earlier. He had been in juvenile court in jail 26 times at that point in his life at 14 years old. He'd been stabbed and shot multiple times.
Oh, my gosh.
After the 16-week program, he got a job at McDonald's, worked his way up into management over 3 years. Got tired of that, and she told me today he drives for Equity Transportation doing long-distance hauling in the trucking industry. So I called Akeem and I was talking to him, and he said, yes, Mr. Graham, I really loved what JIFF taught me. I want to get in touch with my mentor to thank him. And I'm making over $50,000 a year now driving trucks.
Wow.
And I said, well, I'd love to have you come talk to the kids. And he said, I'd love to, but I'm on the road Monday through Friday night, and on some Saturdays I take my rig to Raleigh Springs Mall where I'm teaching other kids how to drive.
Oh my gracious. Well, that is definitely a success story, isn't it?
That's what we're looking for.
It absolutely is. Well, I know you now also want a lot of community engagement, and so that 4th mentoring program we were talking about is called Live Life Together.
That's correct.
Is that right?
That's
Tell
correct.
me about that program.
That program was formed because as a board, when I was a board member, we always struggled with how do we engage the community with these at-risk kids. Quite frankly, they're probably afraid of our kids. As a board member, quite frankly, I was afraid of our kids. But one day we had to have one of our kids arrested. And so we saw him, in the back of a police car. And out of that, we said, well, wait a minute, we have to engage. We have to involve the community. We have to come on board and step across this line. So we formed Live Life Together. And what that is we're asking adults to come alongside our youth after the 16 weeks. And the youth and the adult agree to how much time they want to spend together every month. In my case, which I started doing it with that youth that was arrested, we were doing it every other week, every Saturday, 3 or 4 hours, living life together. We now have mentors that are doing it once a month. And all we're asking is that the youth and the adult decide on what that time frame is, and then the adult commit to doing it for 1 year and be consistent with it. And right now, or probably after tomorrow night, we'll have 23 to 25 men that are engaged in that program. And we've partnered with the Grizzlies Foundation that are providing a staff member to help us with it and provide training as well. So it's a phenomenal program, and the men that are doing it are telling us it's changed their lives.
My gracious, it really, that's amazing. It truly is. So you can use as many mentors as you can get, I'm sure.
We would take 150 mentors tomorrow if we could get it. These kids, they typically don't have an adult positive role model in their life, and what that translates to is that they don't respect authority, they have trouble developing meaningful relationships, and the other thing it develops is deep-seated anger, because who can they depend on?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So you'd take as many as you could get, and that would be better for our community entirely, wouldn't it?
It really would, and I think what they'll find out is that they'll trade some of their weekend pleasure for some substance.
When the mentors get together with the kids, what kinds of things do they do when they meet?
Sometimes it's just taking a long drive so they can have a quality conversation, because that's when the real, I guess, meat hits the road.
Yeah.
You know, the facts start coming to the surface. Sometimes it's a movie or a sporting event or going fishing. It's just living life together, and we caution the mentors, don't go into this with the idea that you're going to fix somebody, because what they're going to find out is that they need the youth as much as the youth need them.
I was going to say, I would think this is a mutually rewarding program.
Very much so, very
And
much so.
For the youth, for the mentor themselves, and certainly for the community.
And the community needs to understand that we're well past the point of throwing money at the issue now. What's going to fix the problems that we're experiencing in Memphis is one-on-one relationships.
It truly is. You know, you talked to me at one point about the impact that JIFF has on the community, and there's that social piece you're talking about, but there's also a financial piece that you were talking about that JIFF actually brings to the community. Talk about that.
Right. If a youth doesn't get it at JIFF and they end up in the adult system, that's going to cost taxpayers $250 a day.
Wow.
The JIFF program lasts for 16 weeks, and it costs on average $5,000.
So $250 a day for
16 weeks equates to $30,000.
Good Lord. So you're talking about the difference between the deltas between the $5,000 and the $30,000.
Correct.
So there's actually a financial impact that our community sees from this as well.
It's even beyond the $30,000, because if we have a 65% success rate working with these kids. So if we work with 100 kids, 65 of them will go on to a productive life, contributing to society. So that contribution added on to the savings, it's in the millions of dollars.
Well, it truly is. And plus, more than anything else, it brings our community peace.
It does. Peace and harmony, which is something that we're all after.
That's true. Will you stay with me a minute? We're going to bring your friend on, and my friend, Lauren Wilson-Young, and she's going to talk with us a minute about some of her involvement, okay?
Great, thank
Stay
you.
right here. Now, we're going to pause now for a short break. When we return, we'll be joined by JIFF board member Lauren Wilson-Young, who'll talk with us about the synergy between JIFF and her cookie business, Sweet Lala's Bakery, and also about why JIFF is important to her and to our entire community.
Welcome to Germantown High School, an international baccalaureate creative and performing arts optional school, a destination school for students who are going places.
Our students are of the highest caliber when it comes to their academics and knowledge.
The IB program is a very rigorous program.
You were challenged in a way that you thought you couldn't be challenged. You succeeded something that other kids may not have thought they could do.
They're accepted to colleges that are just, dream colleges for so many people.
Germantown High School offers a CAPA program, the Creative and Performing Arts program.
When I first came here, I saw the television studio and I was just amazed at what all I saw.
Kids do everything, that they're taught every detail that has to do with theater arts and creative arts.
I love a lot of things about Germantown High School, but primarily what I love is the athletics. There's something exciting around every single corner.
We probably are one of the most diverse high schools in the state of Tennessee, maybe the United States.
I would never doubt about sending your child to Germantown High School.
This high school is something not like any other high school that we have.
There's definitely fun in the work. We find fun in everything we do.
You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Welcome back. I'm Donna Chandler Newman, and you are watching Inspiring Leaders. Today we're talking with leaders from JIFF, Juvenile Intervention and Faith-Based Follow-Up. We're pleased to continue our discussion with Executive Director Richard Graham, and we are delighted to be joined now by JIFF board member Lauren Wilson-Young. Well, thank you, Richard, for staying, and welcome, Lauren.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here.
Me too.
Well, now, okay, you've had a number of roles serving in the community and also with your family foundation. Tell me why JIFF? Why did you become involved with JIFF, and why is it important to you?
Well, JIFF has just taken my heart. I think one of the things when I talk about what JIFF has done for me is this issue of juvenile crime, and what I have come to understand that kids need is love and support. And so as working at the Family Foundation, our Kimmons Wilson Family Foundation, and was being exposed to lots of city issues and city needs, and as I started to think about how I wanted to make a change in those issues that were most close to my heart, I started to think of the issue of kids. I've got 3 kids of my own. And I had met the former executive director, Rick Carr, and I had been involved in a moment of crime myself when I came back to Memphis to work. And that event had me rattled for a little while. My car was stolen at gunpoint by 3 young men that were probably between the ages of 14 to 17 years old. And that event rattled me for a while, but I also began to think about what those kids were up against too, and what reasons they may have had to take my car. And it just wasn't enough to think about walking away and being afraid every day. It was something that God took hold of my heart and really said, you've got to do something more here. And I had learned about the JIFF program, the results that they had with kids who were the toughest of the tough kids in this community. And I wanted to be a part of the work that was making a difference, a real tangible difference.
Well, that's an amazing approach. You know, you could have gone one of 2 ways there, and that was the brave and courageous thing to do, and also the most beneficial for our community. So thank you for being brave and courageous.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you didn't just stop with being on the board, though. You found a way to make some synergy between your own company,
right,
which you opened, called Sweet Lala's Bakery,
correct,
and between JIFF. Tell us about that, and tell us about the relationship between the 2.
So I joined the JIFF board somewhere about the time Richard did, and again, like Richard, was an advocate for JIFF, but really not working directly with kids, and kind of had that tug, thinking about how I wanted to get to know kids more and get to understand what they were up against. And I was baking out of my home, so I'd started a small business as I ran our family foundation, and it got to where I couldn't always fulfill orders, and I would leave every board meeting thinking and hearing the challenge that kids weren't being employed, that JIFF could do the great work of a 16-week program, but beyond that, kids needed jobs. And there was kind of a couple of years, my husband and I started talking about, well, what if we took the bakery down to JIFF, and what if we started the bakery in a new type of way where we employed kids and bring the recipes down, train the kids, pay the kids. And it was just a match made in heaven when Richard took leadership as JIFF's executive director. I began one summer making more cookie recipes because I figured I needed a few more recipes to sell if I was going to make a business out of it. And thankfully, with the commitment of my husband, we were able to take that leap of faith 2 years ago. So we just celebrated our 2-year birthday with Sweet Lala's Bakery.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. Now, you make a number of different cookies, and as a matter of fact, we have some on display right here.
And these are our holiday samplers and sampler boxes.
They're lovely. They really are. Tell me about which kinds you make.
We have 12 different flavors. So we use our original has got a hint of almond in it, and we love that our icing is drizzled on top. We hand brush the icing, and so it's a super soft cookie. We're really dedicated to taste and flavor, and first and foremost wanted to have a product that we knew people would purchase, but then have a reason for the baking side of things and making sure that the product had purpose for those who purchased it as well. So we really wanted to employ the kids. So we have, in terms of flavors, the original, we have a chocolate that's got triple chocolate in there.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
got cinnamon, which is called Snicka. It's our take on the snickerdoodle.
My #1 favorite, by the way.
A latte, a praline, a party. We have all sorts of offerings.
And you, of course, are not baking all these cookies. Let's be really clear about who's baking these cookies.
Right.
Who's doing that?
So we've got several student bakers. So we are pleased to say that we've employed just over 20 kids since we opened the bakery. So they have part-time employment with us, and some will stay on for a couple of days and decide they don't love being in the kitchen, and others will stay on for months. So we were really fortunate to have 4 of ours go on to full-time employment. So we're constantly recruiting new bakers, and certainly in holiday season like we're in at the moment, it's really an exciting time to have a kitchen full of kids.
I'm sure it is. So tell me about the impact on the kids, the student bakers, right?
Right.
Tell me about the impact on them, Richard.
It's incredible because what Lauren's teaching them in the kitchen is job skills and etiquette, work etiquette. So when they move out, like to FedEx Forum or Lenny's, where we have kids employed, they've got a leg up. They didn't have any job training prior. So the interaction and working in a business environment is very important. And the main thing that our kids want is besides an adult to invest in their life, is money.
Well, yeah, and to be self-sufficient. I mean, we
Exactly.
want them to be hireable, right? So you're giving them those skills to do that. And have you written letters of reference for them or not?
Not as of yet, but one of the real joys was one of our students who is working at the FedEx Forum came back and said he wanted to take the cookie to his employer to get his employer to buy our cookies as gifts or possibly sell them there at the FedEx Forum events.
Oh,
so
that's
it's
wonderful.
fun to see when the kids start to make the connections about how to advance our marketing.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It really is. Well, I've got to say, I'm certain they are completely delicious and cannot wait to try them myself. So,
Good. Yeah, we
anyhow.
love the flavor, and we really, I think, believe that people, if they can remember this cookie and remember why it was made and remember what it tastes like, they'll keep calling and keep ordering.
And also keep remembering JIFF along the way.
Absolutely.
Now, there's some other partnerships you have besides with Sweet Lala's Bakery. Don't you have something that you're working with Visible Music College and Christian
Correct.
Brothers?
We're in our second term of a class with Visible Music College. An instructor comes in over a 9-week period and teaches a group of our kids that have an interest in music what melody is about, how to write a song. They end up producing it, recording it, and then to graduate they have to perform. And so we're in our second session with that, and that model is working great. We plan to continue it. We did a partnership with Christian Brothers University in their business department on the power of money, talking about what does a savings and a checking account look like, and it was followed up by a tour at a bank.
Well, that's important too. I mean, if we're producing adults who are self-sufficient and know how to behave in the world after they get a job and know where to put their money and all, then certainly that's important as well. Christian Brothers is going to continue that with you?
Yes, they are. One thing we're trying to do in the 16 weeks is to increase their vision. Because it's hard to believe, but we have kids in 38126, which is a mile from the Mississippi River, that have never seen the Mississippi River.
That is hard to believe.
It's very hard to believe, but it's unfortunately very true because they get comfortable in their zip code and their environment, and they tend not to move out of that environment.
There are many great success stories going here. You had another one a minute ago. Share your second success story. You told us about Akeem. Tell us about the other one.
Jacurium went through the program about 5 years ago. We give them a life plan over the 16 weeks. He followed his. He was employed by Kroger part-time while he enrolled at the University of Memphis. And in January 2015, he graduated from the Memphis Police Academy. And he lacks 28 hours getting his degree in criminology.
Oh, my goodness. That's amazing.
It's transformational to him and other siblings in the household, as well as to the children and his whole life.
You know, I hadn't even thought about that. The ripple effect through the entire family has got to be huge. So there's much more than what it's doing just for him.
It's a stone in the water.
Yes, it really
It
is.
just goes on and on.
My goodness, that's really something. So your experience with JIFF has been transformational for you as well, has it not?
Very much so, very much so.
and for you as well.
Completely transformational.
Now you sit on the board. On the board, you also have responsibility to serve money, to raise money. Excuse me, to raise money. So talk to me about raising money. Where do you get your funds from?
You want me to have a go at that?
Oh, you can start. Yeah,
Okay.
and I'll fill in the blanks.
We get right now about 14% of our funding comes from individuals. We have built up the government side of the funding. We get some support from the city of Memphis and also some from Shelby County government. We would like it to be more, but we've started that. We're hoping to grow that because the taxpayers feel like we are doing the government's work. And we do. Commissioner Mark Billingsley and Heidi Schaefer have been very supportive. The chair of the Shelby County Commissioners, Melvin Burgess, his daughter came in from college and worked part-time at JIFF over the summer, and she was only going to get involved one day a week, but after her first 2 weeks there, she started coming 3 days a week.
Oh my gracious. So, well, that has an impact as well.
Right, so we're looking to build our individual donor base as well as government funding and also our church support base. It's not where we would like it to be.
You know, as a taxpayer, I'm not sure I feel that it is just the government's work. I think it's God's work. It's for all of us. You know, I think the churches should be involved, and I think that individuals should be involved because the beneficiary of all that is all of us. So that's important too, isn't it?
It is, and I think one thing that the general public doesn't understand is that these kids were just born into this.
Right.
They didn't have a choice. And we as adults have to step up to the table and step up across the line because we're quite frankly past the point of just throwing money at this issue. It's got to be one-on-one involvement that's going to make transformational change.
And we break the cycle of juvenile crime by helping to break the cycle of poverty and bring them hope.
Exactly.
Right? Hope.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for being with us today. I'm wishing you every bit of success with
Thank
Sweet
you.
Lala's Bakery, which I love, by the way.
Thank you
and
so
every
much.
bit of success with JIFF. Thank you very much, and the community thanks you.
Thank you, Donna.
I appreciate you
very
having
much
us
for
on the show.
Thank y'all for being here. And thank you for being with us today for Inspiring Leaders. We appreciate our guest on today's show, Richard Graham, Executive Director of JIFF, along with Lauren Wilson-Young, JIFF board member and owner of Sweet Lala's Bakery. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about the very excellent work they do, and if you've been inspired as I have, and you'd like to serve as a mentor, or to donate, or to just know more about the Juvenile Intervention and Faith-Based Follow-Up, JIFF, then please do visit their website, jiffyouth.org. Thank you once more for watching our show, and if you're interested in the air dates of Inspiring Leaders, or for any other program on our station, then you can visit GHS-TV.org, where we're streaming live 24 hours a day. You can keep up with GHS-TV by visiting our website. We hope you'll like us on Facebook and you'll follow us on Twitter. Thank you for joining us for today's show, and be sure and watch our show, Inspiring Leaders, again next month.